Hello, everyone. Welcome back to MCFC Connect. Today, it is still 2024, and so you're probably watching this in 2025. I doubt it's going to drop before that. So, big ups to everyone tuning in. Happy New Year. And, well, today we are talking about some transfer targets that if I was City, I would definitely be looking at in this window. Now then, some of them were not really linked to, but I think some of them would just be smart moves to do nonetheless, to be honest, links or no links. I think it could just be one of those smart deals you do. Now then, some of these are going to cost money, some of them are going to cost little money. But I think we should talk about this because look, Fabrizio's confirmed we are being active in this window, and so why not show that we're active by making some decent signings? And I want to start with Villarreal's main creator, it seems, in Alex Biner, 23 years old. So, age isn't really an issue with him. He's still pretty young, which is only a good thing for us, if you ask me. So he's still got a while at the top. His contract is until 2028, which is a little worry because it makes business a bit more difficult when players have got longer contracts. He's excuse me. He's a winger, but he can play in other positions. I believe he can do left mid. I believe he can do cam as well. And when you play with Pep, you tend to change as a player anyway, so he will go into the role that Pep puts him into, and where Pep thinks he can play. And before I look at goals and assists, I want to look at a big stat at the top, and it's from Squawka, by the way. So check those out and check them out. That top image belongs to them. They made that. I'm merely using it for this. But 102 chances created in 2024, which is pretty good, if you ask me. And you might be wondering, how's that pretty good? Any player could do that, as full I know De Bruyne's gotten that. Now then, in terms of, I don't know if it's the Liga or the world, but in terms of, let's just say the Liga, no other player since Lionel Messi doing it a couple years ago has gotten over 100 chances created in a calendar year. In it, over 100. I do think Messi got more than Biner. But it's only fair. It is Lionel Messi after all. But nonetheless, to even be able to somewhat match those numbers in some level is credit where it's due. It's really, really good stuff from Alex Biner, and it seems to be giving his side a good old helping hand as well. So far this season, he's on 17 goals. No, 17 games, not goals, and he's had 99 goal contributions, and that I think includes 4 goals, 5 assists. Now then, you might be wondering, so he's had a decent season so far. Last season, he got 23 goal contributions with 5 goals, 18 assists. So again, he's a bit more of an assist man than he is a goals man by the sounds of it. But the fact that he's almost matched his goal tally this year is only a good thing. If you ask me, bringing the goals and assists is always nice. Injury record's pretty good. 1 injury this season, which put him out of no games. And I've looked at previous seasons. He's not too bad there either. So he's a pretty good talent. In terms of injuries, injuries have been City's biggest flaw this season. I want to talk about that in a video soon, and hopefully I will do that soon. But yeah, it's one of City's biggest issues, our injuries. Our whole defence has been suffering from it, and the last thing we want is our attackers to be having it as well, which is a good thing that Biner avoids that. Now then, he's worth 50 million, and with his contract being until 2028, this fee would probably be 70 million plus. He's not going to be cheap, which is why I put the chance at 5%. I don't see us signing Byner, not in this window. Summer, let's have another conversation. But look, the fact that I don't think he'll sign this window doesn't mean I don't want him. I would love Byner. I would love Byner to join the club this season because, man, chance creation, we struggle, but we don't. You know, when De Bruyne is not in the team, we really do struggle. When De Bruyne is in the team, though, we do tend to create a bit more. But having someone like Byner who can create chances, maybe not quite as good as De Bruyne, but can still create the chances, is only a plus. Yellow cards, he's had 5, which is pretty good. You know, that's fine. No reds, which is also good. But nonetheless, now it is time to move on to our next player, that being Marmoush. He plays for Frankfurt. He's also a winger, but like Byner, he can play along the front, basically the front four. Byner can't do striker, but Marmoush can. He's 25 years old, so he's a bit closer to that prime year bracket, and he's really come into his own as of late, and I'll get into why. Contract till 2027. Like I said, shorter the contract, the better for us. Means we've got a bit more wiggle room, but 2.5 years is still a decently length contract, which isn't going to help us an absolute ton. It's really when it gets to 2 years, 1 year, half a year that it really helps. He's played, now listen to this, he's played 24 games this season. He's on 30 goal contributions. I believe last season, the entirety of it, he got 24 goal contributions, which is the amount of games he's played this season. He's had an unreal amount of goal contributions so far, Marmoush, and hopefully it's just going to become more and more with Frankfurt or with City. Now then, we've had a small link to him, you know. This is a very expensive deal, though, if we go for him. Frankfurt, look, for all intents and purposes, he is their top man at the moment, and I don't think they want to lose him in January. I think this is a 70 million deal, which is why I think it's such a low chance. Because if we aren't willing to sign Guimaraes because of how expensive he is, now then, to be fair, apparently Newcastle value him between like 80 and 100. So, which is a bit more than Marmoush. Just makes you wonder how far City are willing to go on a January transfer. But nonetheless, Marmoush, clearly a great player. We need competition up top for Haaland, and if Marmoush is willing to play striker, then there's a real competition there to be had. I think Haaland needs someone to keep pushing him. Before it was Alvarez, but now he's got no one. I want to see that again. I want to see someone pushing Haaland. Look, we've been linked to Liam Delap a bit, which I'd like to speak to in another video. Daily Mail Sports, something like that, is who have reported it. So, look, take it with a pinch of salt, but we'll see how it goes, won't we? Injury record, by the way, as well, is basically like Byner's. He's basically clear, which is all good. And, yeah, really good. He's really kind of burst onto the scene as of late as well, to be honest. Like, if you check out his transfer market value, it goes like that. You know, it's such a steep graph, and it really shows that he's only recently really come into his own. That's why you might be wondering, oh, he's 25. If he was all that, then he would have been picked up sooner. But he's only really just started to play at these huge top levels and pulling in 30 goal contributions in less than 30 games. You know, it's almost Mo Salah numbers. And I believe he's Egyptian as well, if my memory serves. But anyway, moving on from the from less of an attacking position, a bit more of a defensive position, but still able to contribute, it is Riki. Now then, he is 23 years old, plays with Torino, and can fill in the CDM role, which is obviously a huge area for City. You know, Rodri's injury has been an absolutely massive blow for us, and we severely need someone to come in and, well, fill that role however they can. And Riki, look, he's kind of Torino's Rodri, I guess you could say. And look, I think we should try and nab him, to be honest. Look, a 1.5 year left on his deal. Like I said, 2 years and below is basically where you want to be when that's kind of where clubs would like to start doing deals, because that's where they can get the most wiggle room on contract perspectives from clubs. 1.5 year. Look, if I'm Torino, this is probably the best chance to get money for him, unless he signs a contract extension. This is probably the best area to get money for him, because in the summer, clubs will be like, "All right, here's 35 million. You can take it, or we'll just come back." No, here's actually 25 million. You can take it, or we'll just come back next season and we'll take it for free. And Torino then do we just take the money, reinvest, try to sign someone? Or Torino can be like, no, this is probably the best chance to get the most money possible for him, whilst still being able to try and reinvest it properly. And so, look, apparently Torino aren't willing to sell in January, and a steep fee is what it would take to sign him. And so a steep fee for his current transfer value of 28 million, it's probably going to be like 40 to 50, which is a lot. And for a player that is really filling in for Rodri, don't know what will become of whoever we sign as a CDM after Rodri comes in. So I'm curious on that behalf. But look, I think we could convince Riki in terms of personal terms. I think it just comes down to Torino and how willing they will be. Which is why I've given it a 20% chance. It's not the highest chance, but I think we can convince Riki, which is my thinking. And look, injury record, like Alex Biner and Marmoush, basically fine. 2 goal contributions this season, which, it's not Rodri numbers, but no one can produce Rodri numbers. So that's kind of where we're at. But now moving on to even further down the pitch for City. And it is the Bayern Munich fullback, Alphonso Davies, the Canadian. Big thing here. Contract. There's a lot of pros and cons to do this deal and the player we're in for. Contract until 2025. So he's got 6 months left. It's a very short time left, which means we can start talking to him now, technically. We can be like, yo, Alfonso, here's your wage, here's a couple of bonuses. Want to join in the summer? Contract's there. Feel free to sign it and you'll be with us in the summer. We can be like that now. Or we can try to do what PSG tried to do with Inter Milan a couple of years ago, Skriniar. We could be like, Bayern, look, Alphonso Davies, we've basically got him on our side, and he's going to join our team in the summer. Now then, we're going to give you an option. You can either let him go for free in the summer, or we'll give you 10 million, 15 million maybe for him now, so that he can join our squad now. That's the other thing we can do, so that Bayern Munich don't actually get a bit of money for him and can maybe try and reinvest. 15 million isn't a lot to work with, but at least you're getting something for a pretty good left back. Problem is with this deal now is Real Madrid are interested, which is always an issue. Real Madrid sniffing. It's the last thing you really want. And so it's going to be a tough battle if it does come down to City and Real Madrid going for him, because look, who's not going to want to go to Real Madrid? And his injury record, not the best. He's had 4 injuries in a season before now. It's not a great record. It's quite a long one. It's not as bad as some players, but like I said, he's had 4 or 5 injuries in a season before now. And look, you can think, oh, well, if it's only for 1 or 2 games, then that's fine. But the build-up, and it means he can't really get momentum going, and it's just a domino effect that will just hinder him and hinder us and make it a waste of money. Unless we can get that injury record under wraps, it's going to be a tough bargain to see him in a City shirt. But still, because of how cheap he would be, and the fact that all we even have to do now is talk to him to make him want to join. That's why I've given it 20%. We have been linked to him in the past, so we'll see how it goes with Alphonso. Moving on now to a very similar position, but a bit more of a higher prospect. It is a bit of a rival for Bayern Munich, Leverkusen's Frimpong. Frimpong returned to the Etihad. Used to play for City's academy, if you didn't know, before we sold him to Celtic, I believe it was. Now then, at the moment he plays midfield for Leverkusen. Apparently he plays right mid, but we know he can do right back, and we know he can do right wing back. Bear in mind, when Kyle Walker joined the club, he was a wing back, and we turned him into a right back. And for we know, we can do that with Frimpong as well. Now, the main thing I bring this up is because I believe he's got a release clause in his contract somewhere for 35 million. I don't know if it's only activatable in the summer, but if we can activate it somehow in January, then that's brilliant. But also, we can also just be like, yo, Leverkusen, 35 million in the summer. Some team's going to swipe him up there, and look, that's quite under the margin for a player as good as your Frimpong. Now, what we're going to offer you is 45 million. Bit more closer to what he's actually worth, and you guys are getting more money out of it, and you guys can probably reinvest that into a decent player. So, think about this offer. It's there, and let us know. We could be like that if we wanted to. And I don't think Frimpong would be super against it, one of the best teams in England. Sure, Liverpool at the top at the moment, but it's still a top team, City. Champions League winners just less than like a year and a half ago. So it's not an awful place to be. And also, I just want to point out, brilliant injury record, best on this list, and 24 games played this season, 10 goal contributions for a fullback / midfielder. That's pretty good. It's more than our players are getting, or most of them. He's gotten, what would that be in total? I think he's gotten 2 goals, 8 assists, I believe was what I read, which, assists for someone in that position, really good for us. We need the goals. Now, and assists aren't the goals, but, if he can set up chances that are good enough for goals, then go for it, honestly. Now then, I don't think this is going to happen in January. I think it's too much of a difficult one to do because I don't think Leverkusen are going to want to budge on one of their best players. But a team that might have no choice but to budge, and it will really come down to whether the player wants to budge in January, despite joining in the summer, is Dani Olmo. Dani Olmo for free. And I'll get into why. Look, he's 26. So he's the oldest on this list, and he'll be turning 27 in 2025. Now then, normally contract here would be an issue. He's got 5.5 years left. But it's not an issue because Barca can't register him as a Barcelona player because of their financial situation. And they're doing everything they can, in my knowledge, to try and change that. Selling whatever they can or something like that to try and make him a City player, as a Barca player. But right now he's not registered as a Barca player, and technically Dani Olmo is a free agent. He is the guy that gets to decide whether he's a free agent. The thing that makes this kind of difficult, though, is because his agent's been very vocal, saying Dani Olmo doesn't want to play for any other club apart from Barca, basically telling other teams to not even try it. So, if we can't convince the player, then we can't do this deal. But I thought it was worth mentioning, it's free. Look, if I'm City, we've been interested in Dani Olmo in the past. I'd just be like, yo, Danny, we like you. We looked at you at some point last season. Just feel free. Here's an offer. We haven't got bad financial problems. We are a stable club. And you're not going to be under any risk of not being registered as a City player. And, you're at one of the best clubs in England. And you'll be filling into a role where we really could use the help. And I think he fits that bill. Now then, one thing to note, injury record, not quite as bad as Alphonso Davies, but still pretty bad. This season already, he's had an injury that's kept him out 8 games. That's a lot of time that we could really use a player that's worth a lot of money. 60 million is his value. So, we could really use Dani Olmo and his contributions. Whether we can help his injury record, see if we can do anything about that to make it not as bad. We'll see. It's a difficult one to do, I'm sure. I'm not a medical guy, but hopefully our medical guy can sort out that part of it. Now then, yellows, he's got none. To be fair, he's played the least games on this list, 15, but he's gotten 7 goal contributions in that time. So, we'll see how good he does at Barca, and hey, maybe he joins Man City, but we'll see on that regard. It's not going to be easy to do any of these deals, but I'd like to see them happen. Now then, I do want to talk about centre-backs at some point in the future, because centre-backs are a role we're going to be looking into. I think it's midfielder, centre-back, full-back, and attacker are the main roles we're looking at. Basically looking at a player for almost everyone on the pitch, apart from really the wings, and I guess the attacker midfield role. But we'll see how it goes. Thank you for tuning in. So much more content like this coming up. I've got a few plans in place. Big ups for tuning in. Once again, Happy New Year. Feel free to like and subscribe. And I'll see you all in